Now, as you may have noticed in my my mini-series on the whole life cycle of an INFJ, you might say, from infancy to the later years, I tackled principally the compliant INFJ, the most common INFJ, the solipsistic INFJ, and the spiritualized INFJ, the INFJ that one may or may not become. I did not touch upon what I call the spinning INFJ, a more polarized kind of INFJ who tends to be defined by almost complete and circular / loopy spinning reliance on the functions of perception between NI and SE, SE and NI, NI and SE, SE and NI, without much of an anchor found in the functions of judgment, which I call the superegoic functions, the functions of the superego. They are, in a sense, the ethical functions, the should functions, right? The do and don't functions. Now, in the case of this more polarized or looping kind of INFJ, looping not between NI and TI, but between NI and SE, and back to NI, and back to SE, back to NI. This particular kind of INFJ is difficult to integrate within the narrative that I provided in my mini-series for a number of reasons. The first reason is this is a relatively new kind of INFJ. I don't think many such INFJs existed before the 1990s, possibly even the 2000s. This condition is not one that afflicts only INFJs, but its variance, its INFJ variance, is the one that I have been attempting to describe over the last few months. Now, because it's still relatively new, we don't know really what the life cycle of such an INFJ is going to be, and we can only make conjectures, and we will have to witness that in real time. The other reason why it's difficult to provide a similar kind of narrative in the case of the spinning INFJ is that a great deal of this narrative has been centered around whether or not an INFJ manages to integrate and articulate and put in motion a life project. It sounds simple on paper, but there's so many INFJs who either don't have a life project or convince themselves in fantasy that they have a life project, but it's still waiting to happen and we're not noticing anything. It's happening in the mind, it's an ideal, it's a utopia, but it's actually not going on. This is fantasy. This is the building of the ego ideal at the expense of the real ego, and that cannot be good, right? Now, in the case of and that applies to all stripes of INFJ, the issue, the challenge with the spinning INFJ is this absence, or this, I should not say absence, because it's not absence, this real weakness, this suppressed nature of the functions of judgment, the functions of the superego. Because there can be no NI project, in many ways a perceiving project, without the supporting foundations, the anchoring of the functions of judgment. To take a very basic, simple example, or to illustrate in the most straightforward way possible, you cannot have a life project if sometimes you don't beat yourself up, saying, come on, just today, do this, you have this task, do it, it's part of your project, even if maybe you don't really feel like it, If you were to just follow your drive, if you were only to follow your wishes, you would not do it. You let yourself be distracted by things that are more fun to do at that particular moment. You will not be able to delay gratification in the name of the project, right? The weaker your superego is, the more incapable you are of delaying gratification. And that is the center of the problematic of the spinning INFJ, is that the spinning INFJ does not have this anchor. The spinning INFJ does not manage to delay gratification. And if you're not able to delay gratification in the name of something higher, how are you going to manage to have a life project? How are you going to manage to spiritualize, or at least to face the question? How are you going to, in the language that I used in previous videos, how is that INFJ going to be able to even have to reckon with the possibility of individuation? This INFJ is not able to delay gratification. The gratification of the senses, the gratification of intuition. Because intuition can be gratified to no end. It can gratify itself to no end. But that's not individuation. That's not a life project. So the only alternative, the only option that I see being available to the spinning INFJ is working on building up the superego, building up the functions of judgment. And it seems, at least psychology and psychoanalysis, as far as we can tell, indicate that even though it's hard to calm down the superego in the case of the compliant and the solipsist, it's easier to have a superego that you need to pacify a little bit and tame than it is to build a superego from scratch. And I do not have the answer. Honestly, at this moment in time, apart from, of course, therapy or analytic therapy, and or really from as early an age as possible, prioritizing meeting people, spending time with people in the flesh rather than on screens, right? Apart from these two things, I don't really know what else to say. But I will say this. It's obvious that in our younger generations, namely the generations that feature more of those spinning types, there is a certain form of the return of the religious. It's really interesting how there are many in our younger generations that are making their way back to some kind of religious belief, whether it's Christianity, Orthodoxy, Catholicism, Protestantism, Islam, what have you. The younger generations are going back, right? Now, the analytic understanding I have of this phenomenon is that what religion provides is a superego. The superego that they feel they don't have enough of. The collective superego comes to supplant, take the place of the personal superego that was never really there in the first place. And from this perspective, it is actually smart to go back to religion, to embrace religion, because it will certainly bring more stability and the ability to pursue a life project. So it is something worth pursuing. Let me know your thoughts, guys. Give me a like if you haven't yet for this video. It helps with the referencing, as you know. And please don't forget that my Patreon is linked down below. I could not do this without you. I need you more than ever. So if you would consider supporting me either once a month or once a year for a small amount, you get access to our Discord server, to the deep dives, which are my bonus videos every 2-3 weeks, exclusively for the community of Patreon supporters. I'd be immensely grateful. Don't forget my books, The Infinite Soul on INFJ Life in a Modern World, my latest book on the INFJ, on how INFJs can be fulfilled, purposeful, and full of meaning in the world today. First link below, get the book if you haven't yet, as well as my first book on the INFJ, The Ecstatic Soul, a new look at the INFJ personality, to this day, the deepest investigation of the type, link below as well. Okay guys, see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.